to join our internet discussion group too.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, this is wonderful. You're like great teachers. This is just such a joy to be able to interact with people that are, have been studying and
We have a
practicing.
common interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the discussion group, I always also every Friday put a note of what the different Zoom discussions are, because sometimes, like next weekend, there aren't any. So just if you join and keep an eye on that, you'll know what's going on.
That sounds great.
Yes, so great to meet you.
I think I do the
You too.
chance.
Yes, are you here, Jan?
Yes สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัส
everyone
ดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะอาจารย์ and everybody
Jan, a new friend, Drake, was just introducing himself. He lives in North America, and I think he said he read an article that Jonathan and I wrote, and anyway, he's found his way here, so we're very glad to welcome him. Are you familiar with the various Pali terms, Drake, or just a little?
Some. I've been studying the Satipatthana for about 2 years, and I've started to read the sutras in English, so I'm kind of on my way of learning the most prominent Pali words.
Okay.
There's
So
a lot.
if we use any terms, we'll try to give a translation and explanation, or else keep it mostly to English.
Yeah, because there were some of the beautiful mental formations that were words that I hadn't learned before, like that inquiry, like that desire to learn, the investigation. So like that kind of level, I don't know, but like pana and dukkha and, sati, sapajana, that kind of thing.
You're familiar with, yes. And sometimes we're familiar with the words, but we need to discuss more about the meaning.
Yeah, like yesterday, like I listened to that talk, and when Sujin was talking about knowing that what it was meant by sati sapatana, like the patana part, I didn't know what she was referring to, like in a direct way. I mean, I kind of thought of it as a base for cultivating mindfulness, like using the body or feeling, but it sounded like she was implying that there's some other observational momentary insight that word patana was referenced to. I didn't know. So.
And I think the point that was being emphasized is that from the beginning, we have to learn and consider and begin to understand about different realities now, different kinds of namas, those realities that experience an object, and different rupas, those realities that don't experience an object, to begin to understand that there are only dhammas now arising and falling away. So in truth, no one who can practice, no one who can do, no one who can observe. So when, as commonly, there is the idea of doing satipatthana or meditating or focusing or observing, it's not actually the understanding of patana, the objects of right awareness and right understanding, because there is the idea of someone lurking behind that can follow such a practice. And even a word like body, usually we think of this whole body, a body belonging to oneself. But actually, in truth, just as there's no I or no person, there's no body either. There are just different rupas arising and falling away that are taken for my body or someone else's body. So this is why usually we come back to the basics to discuss what life is right now, what is seen now, what is heard now, what is touched now, and what experience is now. Is it I that sees or I that hears, or is there just seeing now or hearing now? Because otherwise there is the idea of I touching or feeling a body, but actually only different rupas are experienced through the body sense. So the whole point of the teachings, as we appreciate, is to really understand that there is no self to be found, no essence, no soul, no one to control, no one to do anything. And I think Anne was asking more about anatta last week. So this is a good topic. But perhaps Ajahn would like to carry on now.
Anne, please.
Oh,
Is there any question?
Yes, last week's discussion was very helpful. Anatta is one of the characteristics of all dhammas, all realities, that they all realities arise by conditions. There is no self, no one, nothing that has control of their arising. So yes, the essence of it is that there is no person, no self, and things that we see, like leaves like I'm looking at the leaves in the picture behind Ajahn here on the screen. I'm just looking at the picture. That the picture is not a reality, but the reality is seeing, and seeing sees color, or it sees the visible object. And neither of these both arise by conditions. There is no one pulling the strings behind it, so to speak, no self who's able to do that.
That is beginning to understand what is there. See, there must be reality right now appearing. For example, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, hardness, and visible object, and so on. But it's so very subtle because no one understands just one reality at a time to say it's not self and not anyone at all. We think about the term anatta, no doubt, when we talk about seeing and hearing, but the subtlety of the truth is there, that even is so close right now, appearing, how much understanding of the anatta-ness of that which is there. So it's not just the word, but it's the understanding, beginning to understand the truth of what is there, to have more confidence of no one and no thing at all. And if there is no understanding of the characteristic of that which is now appearing, how can there be the development of firm confidence of it just seeing itself? Even just seeing, see, who knows what's the meaning of it? It's just seeing it, a reality which sees. So it is just seeing. Anyone can understand it, but the nature of that which arises, experiences, that which is now appearing, which were object, no idea at all about the truth. It's only that which is seen. That's why the understanding of anatta-ness has to be enrooted, to be firm confidence, to understand whatever is there is just what has been heard so long ago, not just today or just now, but the meaning of it, the truth of it, is so close. Thinking about just one reality, just one. Can it be people around us, or table and leaf, or picture, or whatever is that? Impossible. Just one moment. And life is not just only one moment, but without one moment, there's no life at all. All are anatta. So when we read about the truth of what is there. It has to be object of considering and understanding that it's not enough at all just to understand what we say. Dhammas are anatta because there has to be the understanding of one Dhamma at a time. Otherwise, how can there be the understanding of one by one now as it is different ones? See, for example, seeing itself. There is seeing right now. It's not that which is seen. See, so that which is seen can be seen only that is seeing. And this is so true in life. No one to do anything at all because it's there already. So the truth is that can there be any moment considering the truth of even just one reality? As we say, life is in a moment, understanding what is there now. Understanding what is there now is not just a word, but now seeing, understanding, seeing as it is now. And this is the beginning to lead to understanding the truth. So through satya, nobody can change. And that is the beginning of the development of anatta, little by little, from one reality to another reality. And there are so many realities in a day or even right now. So no doubt about parami, the accumulation of conditions to let go the idea of self and understanding the nature of it. When it's there appearing, now it does not appear as it is. The arising and falling away of one reality does not appear at all. But the understanding of the truth begin to be firmer and firmer. That actually the realization of anatta is quite a long, long way. Without understanding just one moment, it's impossible to get closer and closer to the way it is now arising and falling unknowingly, successively, by conditions. That's why this is the only way. The path leading to realize the truth is so very subtle, and it is Ariya Satya Dhamma. Ariya Satya Dhamma, the moment of realizing the truth. But it has to begin to understand the subtle meaning of anatta, to have firm confidence, seeing arises by conditions and is gone. As soon as it has risen, it sees and then gone, because there are conditions for its arising, but not for to stay on. So as soon as it has risen, it's gone. See, understanding a little more firmer and firmer, understanding how long it will be moment of realizing the truth, but it has to develop from understanding firmer and firmer. That's why the path is Ariya Satya. It's so very subtle. People think about wanting to do, wanting to realize what? That which hasn't happened yet. But what about now? It's there already by conditions. This is the beginning of firm understanding of letting go, thinking about trying to do anything, but have more confidence that only understanding the truth, that is the path. Because at that moment, it's so firm that it prevents the idea of I will do something and so on, because it's there in life. Now, previous moments gone. See, but now it's there and then gone. It's a truth. Just firm confidence of one moment as what is there. Seeing is there now. And what about hearing? See, it's not seeing. They cannot arise together by different conditions. But no matter what arises, falls away. Sabbe sankhara anicca. Sabbe sankhara dukkha. Sabbe Dhamma anatta. See, even this has to be considered on and on and on. So it can be conditioned in daily life to begin to consider what is there by conditions. No one or hardness is there. See, so short. Sound is there, so short. See, even it's right now, the words talking and represent the truth right now can be considered by itself. No one, see, by itself now. That's why we learn that seeing is not right understanding, is not sati, and what is there. When it appears, it can be known because that's firm understanding of the truth. Whatever is there by conditions, even the meaning, the understanding of the truth of anatta has to be so firm because it will lead to realization, the characteristic, which is Ariya Satya Dhamma or Dhammas are anatta. Because we can listen to any words, but what about the firm understanding of anatta? Why do we learn about its reality? To understand the truth, anatta. No expectation to understand what is there. As I know, I understand. That is not anatta. But the understanding of no matter what is there now is conditioned, appearing and disappearing. By conditions, who can do? No one at all. Because seeing cannot be anyone. It's conditioned by the eye and the visible object and the kamma condition the moment of experiencing pleasant or the unpleasant object and so on. Just in very, very short moment, in split seconds of split seconds. Is it true? And this understanding will let go the clinging to the I. And it begin to attend to the characteristic of what is there now by conditions. If not now yet, they consider about the word of truth is there to be implanted, enrooted. So natural, that's the way it is. So the people in the Buddha's time, they were joyful to understand the truth, that it's so deep, it's so far, but it can be known from hearing, considering, on and on and on. And that's the way it is. So very subtle, the moment of understanding the anatta-ness of what is there as not anyone or anything. Even the word anyone or anything is so very subtle too. Each word is so subtle because it represents the subtle realities. And at moment of hearing about the truth, is it pariyati or I know the word and the meaning? Pariyati is the understanding, the truth at level of intellect understanding. In order to condition moment of directly understanding with awareness when it's there by conditions. By conditions is the moment of letting go, the clinging to the I. See, very subtle path, the Four Noble Truth. And this is so subtle because at moment of understanding that now the understanding is there, developing to have confidence of the truth until it's time to begin to understand what is there naturally, usually, like it is every day. That's why our dhammas are so very subtle. So subtle because it's there now. And we're talking about it. How much understanding of anatta.
So at the start, Drake, you mentioned about the abandoning of desire, but it's only by beginning to understand more about the different realities, the different dharmas now in daily life, that there can be the very gradual letting go of the idea of trying to do something, trying to be aware, trying to understand, the strong clinging to I. And usually people have the idea of directly being aware of realities instead of considering and discussing, and then they think later they can study more or consider more. But without the Pariyatti understanding that Ajahn was just mentioning, the careful considering and reflecting on the nature of different dharmas, which is very subtle, as she mentioned, there cannot be the direct understanding, the direct awareness, because it will be the wrong understanding, like when one has the idea of being directly aware of the body or the sensations, but actually no understanding of what is meant by body, no idea of what feelings are. Everything is mixed up together, and I is there observing or trying to do something. So this is the point of having the discussions and considering a little more carefully. Do you have any comments or feedback so far, or questions about anything that has been said? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Would you unmute?
Oh, thank you. Is part of the practice in daily life then just recognizing that the momentary contacts that arise and change are not selected, they're not chosen by a self, and that they come and they go all by themselves. And so just by seeing that process is automatic and doesn't belong to a self, it doesn't consult my personal ego and what I want, then maybe I could learn to like detach a little bit more from that, identifying it as my experience, where it's just these brief moments coming together and going apart. I just like, and they're so fast you can't. It's like you can't see the space between a vision and a sound. It seems like it's all kind of happening together, but in reality, they're just these really quick moments of experiencing, and it's all completely natural and automatic. That doesn't depend on a notion of a self.
Yes, that is what you say about very brief moments happening by conditions. That is a correct description of the world as taught by the Buddha. But this is not possible to be seen just by observing as we are conventionally used to doing it. Because these realities that we are talking about are not yet seen each as they are. Our idea of the world at the moment is, as you say, it's a composite picture. And if there is, for example, anger, we know that dosa, unpleasant feeling, aversion is present, but the characteristic of that particular mental factor doesn't appear. All we know is I feel angry, unpleasant feeling, etc. Whereas the mental factor of dosa has a particular characteristic. So observing in a conventional sense how our mood changes, or what is seen changes, or the fact that it seems that seeing and hearing happen together simultaneously, is just the conventional understanding of the world as being impermanent, which the Buddha, a term the Buddha used. So there is no practice to be done, because any attempt at practice is just really focusing on the world as we understand it anyway. And it's only understanding which can separate out these different realities, or that can see the different realities as they are at the present, rather than the composite picture. Because even if we now focus on seeing, or what is being seen, that's already what we think is being seen is already thinking about the visible object rather than the visible object itself, because the conceptualization has made up a picture of the TV screen and the various people appearing on it. Those moments are not moments of seeing, they are moments of thinking about what is being seen. And just as through the ear door, it's only sound that is heard, and it's the thinking about the sound that enables us to recognize the voice, the words, the meaning, the concept being conveyed. And there's no actual knowledge, there's no actual seeing of the moment of just hearing. So also through the eye door, there's no experiencing, unless understanding has been developed, of just the visible object, from which the idea of time and place and person is built. And so, according to the Buddha's teaching, it's not the practice that helps to develop the right understanding. It's hearing about the description of the world as taught by the Buddha, and reflecting on that, which can be a condition for a better understanding of the realities of the present moment. So it's not selecting a reality, it's not trying to see this or that reality, attachment, aversion, visible object, whatever, because that again is done with the idea that these things can be achieved by willpower, by dint of conventional effort. Now, when the Buddha talked about effort in the suttas, if you've come across it, he's referring to the effort that arises together with awareness and understanding, not our idea of the effort to have awareness and understanding. The effort there precedes, in the conventional notion, the wholesome mental state. But that effort can't be wholesome, can it? Because otherwise, if there was wholesome citta already, then it wouldn't need the effort, the conventional effort. So it's a completely different notion of the world and of the way to the understanding of the world as it is.
What about the full attention with the intention to understand, like to just to have that direct experience without the concept, but to be fully present and observing with an openness to.
Yeah, full attention to what?
To what's arising, just in the moment.
Well, what is arising? How does that differ from the attention of the present moment?
it doesn't. That is what you're attending to, basically.
Well, the difficulty here is that if there's not a correct understanding of the way things are, then the intention to see reality more clearly is informed by that wrong understanding in the first place. So if, for example, visible object or sound will say, it does not appear as it is, and in other words, it's just the experiencing of sound before there is any thinking about who is speaking or what they are saying, then if that is not known, then how can there be attention to that? It's a sort of artificial kind, trying to block out other things because I want to understand sound better. And this is not the path taught by the Buddha, because there is the idea that one self can make understanding happen by focusing. And that is not the teaching of the Buddha. His teaching was that the necessary attention is a mental factor that arises when the awareness and understanding arises also, or for any kind of kusala. And the necessary mental factors only arise at the time of the kusala, the wholesome moment, whether it's metta, loving kindness, compassion, or awareness and understanding. So they can't be made to happen by will, because that intention itself is necessarily not wholesome. But as I said, if the citta is wholesome, if the consciousness is wholesome, then there's no need for any conventional effort to direct it this way or that way.
Huh. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And the desire for I to do something is so sneaky and so strong, like you mentioned, the desire at the start. Actually, there is attention, manasikara, cetasika arising at every moment in life. But usually, after seeing, hearing, and so on, usually it's unwholesome attention with attachment and ignorance. So clinging to experience a certain object, for example, there's unwise attention at those moments. Or intention, cetana, also arises at each moment. But again, the rare moments of wholesome consciousness, when there is kindness or generosity or understanding, are accompanied by wholesome intention. But when it's the intention to be aware, or the intention to recognize, or the intention to detach a little more, it's actually the unwholesome cetana with desire again. So it comes in very quickly. And so as soon as there's an idea of I can practice, or I can detach, or I can be fully attending, I is there trying, however slightly, trying to catch, trying to observe, trying to be aware. So we come back to talking about the different realities. For example, seeing now, seeing consciousness now. It doesn't arise because I wish or I'm trying to see, but the conditions for that reality to arise, to see what is visible. If there was no visible object to be seen, and if the visible object had not impinged on eye sense, seeing couldn't arise. So we learn that seeing arises because of particular conditions. It has to also be conditioned by past karma, because it's a result of karma. So we think it's I that can see, I that can hear, but actually these realities arise by their conditions. And it's the same with the visible object that's seen or the sound that's heard. Can I choose what is heard at this very moment? or are the sounds conditioned to appear just as they are, to be heard as they are? And even the thinking afterwards, the thinking about the sound, the thinking about the meaning, the thinking about the person who's uttering the sounds, even the thinking is conditioned. It's not I practicing to think wisely, but the thinking is conditioned by the previous habits of thinking wisely, thinking unwisely at different moments. So we learn more about the different realities, the different dharmas, and how they are conditioned to arise, to appreciate more and more that actually there isn't any I that can detach or be fully aware or attend to this or that object or practice anything. So, as we said before, it's all about the development of understanding to gradually let go of the idea of I that is there. And this is the teaching that is so unique to the Buddha. Without the Buddha's teaching, there would never be any letting go of I can do something. But that tendency is so deep-rooted, it comes in all the time. And what is seen and what is heard is instantly taken for something or someone, an arm or body, a picture, a person. So this is why we come back to talk about what is real, what is the reality at this very moment.
And one thing I'd just like to add briefly before other people speak, just for clarity, is that as you will have noticed, we're talking here about the development of understanding. And we're talking about the understanding, development of understanding of any Dhamma, any reality, any conditioned Dhamma. I mention this because people who come from a meditation background, I'm not saying this is your case, but they often want to focus on certain things, for example, catching unwholesome thoughts that may arise in order to replace them with wholesome thoughts, or focusing on a particular object, whether it be a casino or a phrase or words or something like that. So just to put our discussion into context, it's all about the development of understanding. And in that sense, the object of the understanding, whether it's a mental state, whether it's citta itself, whether it's a rupa, sound, visible object, is in a sense immaterial. The important thing is seeing these different dhammas, conditioned realities, as they are, their nature and their characteristics that they have in common: anicca, dukkha, anatta. And Ajahn spoke at length earlier about the characteristic of anatta, usually translated as non-self, and she said that has to become enrooted. And I think actually the same applies to the other two characteristics, anicca and dukkha. All are to be developed until the understanding of them becomes firmly developed enough. And so there's no need to choose any reality or to choose any particular characteristic of reality as the focus of one's development of understanding. It all happens by conditions, because it is the conditioned nature of realities that is actually what is learnt by the understanding that is being developed. A lot to be taken in. Need some time to reflect on it. Thank you.
A question that frequently arises when one is well, all the time, but certainly when one is beginning to understand what understanding really is, what can I do? What can I do to hasten this? You know, we're so used to doing something. And the answer is nothing other than listen to the Dhamma and the considering, the reflection. It's that wise reflection that's going to be of assistance. And again, that will happen by conditions. That's not something you can will to do. It will happen organically is not the right word, but it'll happen by conditions. There's nothing you can do to push it ahead other than, I suppose, when the opportunity arises, listen. You can listen to the Dhamma. You can read, etc., but not with a view to memorizing or just learning the words, but with a view to a deeper understanding. It's so enrooted, as Jonathan said, the idea of self and the idea of permanence, and I can do things. It's very subtle, and it'll never happen quickly. It's very slowly over time, but without the right view in the beginning, it won't happen at all.
And even the listening and considering is conditioned, not I can listen, I can, because even now when we're talking, it just depends on accumulations and habits and various conditions, whether there's any wise listening or considering at this moment, not I who can make it occur. So as you say, very subtle.
Imperceptible.
And it's such a big relief. It's like letting go of a big burden, nothing for this imaginary self to do at all, because there is no self to do anything. They're just different realities being experienced by different conditions. And it's always the unexpected object that is experienced. Who knows at this next moment whether it will be sound heard or odor smelled or an object that is thought about. So when there is the idea of focusing or observing a particular object, it's not the natural understanding and natural detachment towards what has already been conditioned to arise. And it matters not in the slightest whether that reality is sound or pleasant or unpleasant feeling, anger or kindness. They're all dhammas arising and falling away, not belonging to any self. So no self means no selection, no expectation, because they just arise by their conditions. So no practice to be followed, nowhere to go, nothing to be done, just coming back to life at this moment. As Ajahn mentioned, life just exists in the moment. Seeing now, what is seen now is the world at this very moment. The moment of hearing, the world is just the hearing of the sound heard. That's it. Simple, but very deep and subtle.
And always there.
Just to give Drake a little bit of a break, just at the very end of the last discussion, Anne, we said we would remember that you were asking about Asya and Anusya, and we were talking about dhammas falling away, never to return again. I'll just explain briefly for the benefit of anyone not familiar with the terms what Asya and Anusya are. So in order for attachment to arise now, however strongly or weakly, or dosa to suddenly spring up, seemingly out of the blue. There has to be that tendency, that habit that has been accumulated from lifetime after lifetime. So we know that even soon after birth, identical twins will have different tendencies, different habits. And it's because there are these different natures, different unwholesome tendencies, which are the anusia, the unwholesome tendencies that have been accumulated. They don't arise, but they're like microbes that are latent, carried from each moment of consciousness to the next, ready to condition the arising of that desire or that aversion or the ignorance at any time. So these are the anusia, but they're also the habits, the tendencies, the wholesome ones that have been carried from each chitta, each moment of consciousness, one to the other, ready to condition the arising of good qualities, kindness, generosity, understanding. Why is there the listening and considering to the truth now? Because that tendency has been accumulated. So even when there's no understanding, the tendency isn't lost, but it's ready to condition the understanding when time is right. So we have two expressions, the anusia, which just refer to the unwholesome tendencies, and the asya, which refer to all habits, all tendencies, wholesome and unwholesome. So this is what Anne's question was about. And maybe, Anne, you can repeat your question, because we only just started it last time, and then Jan can add more.
I'll do my best in terms of the repeating. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I know what it was all about. I was thinking about, for instance, anger. Anger arises from time to time where there are conditions for it to arise. And as Sarah said, and some of those conditions are the tendency, the latent tendencies that are carried forward from eons back. Also, though, after anger arises, dosa is the word in Pali, it will fall away, because jittas arise, very short moment of existing, and then fall away completely, never to return again. And I was we've had this discussion before, but it always helps me to hear it and try to re-understand it again. That if something has fallen away completely, how is the tendency carried forward? And Jonathan, actually, something you said, Jonathan, was very helpful. That it's the cetasika dosa, anger, that falls away. When the citta falls away, after it arises, minuscule moment existence, then falling away. That is not the same as the tendency, but the tendency can accumulate. And I guess I'd like to hear more about that.
I think,
John or Jonathan or.
well, Ajahn may wish to say something. I can't add much more than that, because, I mean, I just know what I've read about it, sort of thing. So, but it seems to me essential to distinguish between the accumulated tendency and the arising of
Yes.
a reality.
Yes.
And the mechanism by which the tendency accumulates while the reality falls away and is gone forever is something that I don't think we can. Well, for me, I'm just happy to accept the hypothesis that that's how it is.
Right.
I don't think anything particularly turns on it.
I
But
wasn't, I, I'm not,
it makes sense to me that the tendency increases when every time there's anger, the tendency to anger increases. I don't have any difficulty with that.
although that
opposition.
particular moment of anger has fallen away.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, but it has its effect while it's arising. And it has the effect of increasing the tendency, of adding to the accumulated tendency.
Mhm.
I can say no more than that.
Well, and I can see it's one of those questions that may not produce anything of benefit to try to explore, other than as you say, knowing the distinction between the falling
Well,
away of
if one doubted that it did accumulate, then it would need some further explanation, I suppose. But I don't think that's your position. I think you're just a
no.
bit mystified by the fact that it does accumulate even while
Mhm.
the reality falls away. And there
Okay.
seems to be a contradiction of some kind there. But because the reality is the reality and the accumulated tendency is the accumulated tendency, I don't see any contradiction.
And it is the nature of natural decisive support condition,
Yeah.
Panisya Pachya, that's exactly how it works, that the kindness now has to fall away immediately, but by having arisen, it conditions the accumulation of kindness by way of the latent tendency, the asya, which is
Mhm.
carried by the citta, ready to condition its arising again. So that is exactly how that particular condition takes place. So
Right.
I was mentioning to Drake, so the seeing now is a result of karma, but the desire, the clinging to what is seen is not a result of karma. It is by this condition, the habit, the tendency. And so even when there is no desire for seeing, that tendency is still being carried citta to citta, ready to condition the arising of desire again and again and again. So even though each moment of desire falls away, by having arisen, it conditions the increased tendency
Mhm.
of that particular habit to make it a little more likely to arise again. And these habits have been accumulated for
And
eons.
I mean, that makes sense, isn't the right word, but we can understand that conventionally, if something happens often enough,
Yeah.
it's going to happen again and again.
It's a bit like dropping a speck of salt in a glass. It dissolves,
Mhm.
but gradually that water becomes a little more salty,
Right.
even though no salt is being added. But each time it's added, it becomes a bit more salty. That saltiness is there.
Right.
Is it not also similar in the case of memory, sanya, the mental factor? We're told that the mental factor of sanya arises and falls away momentarily, like all other conditioned realities. It marks the object, and it's accumulated in the sense that it isn't lost, and that is what makes possible to recall past events. So all those marks are carried forward and added to each time there's another moment of sanya.
I hadn't thought of the parallels between them, Jonathan, but yes, the way you've explained that. Well, what you're saying definitely makes sense, and I can see how that is the case. I think I started out perhaps looking for something more than is required to understand it.
In effect, nothing is lost. So the memory falls away, the desire falls away, but the tendency, the habit is not lost. That's why, like
Yeah.
we say, in a new life, like for the one who has passed away, the habit of understanding, the habit of kindness, the habit of ignorance is there, ready to condition more kindness, more
Well-
understanding, more ignorance when time is right.
Well, each particular moment, each particular Cetasika has fallen away. Right. I can understand. Well, this is where I have I guess I just have trouble expressing it. But yes, it accumulates because it was. But so the tendency accumulates, certainly not the Cetasika.
The tendency accumulates, actually the Cetasika, because the tendency are Cetasikas, like the Anusiyas, the attachment, the aversion.
Not the particular one that's fallen away.
They're Cetasikas, but they're not arising, but that tendency of those mental factors is there, those habits is there. And each time it conditions the arising of that factor, it accumulates that tiny bit more. So the tendency is there until the unwholesome tendencies, the anusiyas, are eradicated stage by stage. Otherwise, it's there, like we talked about, doubt. So even if there's no doubt now, that tendency of doubt is carried forward moment by moment, ready to condition the arising of doubt when there are conditions for it, until it's eradicated completely by the Sotapanna.
Almost circular, isn't it? The anger or the doubt that arises is conditioned by previous anger or doubt as a anusiya. It arises, it falls away, but the tendency continues. Like I say, it's
On and on and on, lifetime after lifetime. Yes.
Right. Spirals.
Yes. And it's not just by like the dosa is not just accumulated or conditioned by the dosa, but also by the attachment. Each time there's not getting what one wants, or clinging, or trying to experience, trying to observe, then dosa will follow for sure. Doubt will follow, uncertainty. So we can see that they are interrelated too.
Yes, several factors. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a useful discussion.
So Jan would like to add more to it as well.
That would be lovely. That would be great.
So why do we talk about this? See, to understand the truth a little more, to just let go the idea of self or someone is so very deeply rooted that no matter we talk about it in different manners, different aspects, but that self is still there enrooted and accumulated so very, very strongly. See, that's why no matter we're talking about citta or cittasika or anusia or asya and attachment or where is it? It's now. Each moment, unknown. But if we don't talk about it at all, how can it let go? Just a little bit from hearing that it cannot be anyone at all. So the point at moment of discussing on it is not just want to understand it, but to let go ignorance about the truth of this moment. Because even if they're now appearing, while what we're talking about is not that to be known, because it does not appear at all, but the understanding of what is there in life from moment to moment as no one, so very deep. that it cannot be known instantly at all. But hearing again about the truth of this and that is the way to let go, even at level of intellectual understanding right now. And this is a subtle way, see, Ariya Satya, no other way at all. If we just sit and try so hard to understand the truth of that very moment, it's impossible. But now, hearing, considering about the truth, even it cannot be the object of understanding directly as seeing right now, but it is conditioned to understand the truth a little more. But the letting go is not attachment to it. But the point is hearing it, understanding it, that it cannot be anything else at all. When we're talking about Citta, Cetasika, Anusya, and Asya, it's there now. But what appears, see, right understanding of what has been learned, where is it? Is it enough to let go doubt and ignorance of that which is now appearing? See, that's why learning to understand it without intellectual understanding, nothing can condition moment of beginning to letting go, even in words or thought about what is there. But the truth is that it's much deeper than that, because it's easy to say Citta is a reality, it's a nama, it experiences the object. No doubt about the word, but what is now? Seeing is there without the confidence that what is there is not self, as we have learned about, is there as that which experiences an object. It's there to be known. Only one characteristic at a time. Otherwise, what is there? Can it be known as it is, just one characteristic as it's there in truth at a time? Because even there are so many realities arising together, but that which does not appear, can it be known? What about that which is now appearing? Can it be known? But if we neglect to just not attention or consider carefully, then can never be the understanding of just the reality, the nama, which experiences the object. See, it's there, so powerful, because without it, there is nothing, no one, no word about what is there now, as we have heard at all. That's why what is that which is there from birth, never absent at all, any moment, sleeping, feeling, or whatever, it's there all the time. It's known as just the word, but now it's there. That's why this is intellectual understanding, or when there's a little clearer understanding of the truth, to understand that it's not self. It is pariyati. No doubt about the truth that it's there, but it cannot be known when it does not appear. So what appears now can be understood little by little at moment of attending to the characteristic which now is there any moment, experiencing an object. See, so one can understand the difference between pariyati and patipatti and pativeda to begin to understand the truth directly when time comes. Even we are talking about it, seeing right now, no attention to the characteristic of that which experiences what is now appearing, like different visible objects or sound or thinking. See, that's why learning about the prayati to be conditioned to letting go wrong understanding before hearing the truth. But there must be another level too. Not enough, because it's so deep. The understanding just follow it closer and closer to understand what is there so close. The world is there. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. We talk about all this all the time in a day, but can it condition moment of just understanding that this is the step to step on and on to higher and higher understanding, deeper and deeper to the moment it's there as it's by condition arising and falling away. So what you said, what Kuneda and Sun said, or I'm saying, by conditions that we have been talking about just a moment ago, and keep on, not forget it. But usually it's forgotten. If we don't have discussion, or if we don't read, or if they don't hear, to understand the value, the precious moment of beginning to attend to what is there as it has been learned about it before. See? And that can be the understanding from hearing, considering that it's not just intellectual understanding, but without intellectual understanding, as condition, what is there in the day? Thinking about other things with attachment as question and events and story, on and on until death. That's why the development of understanding has to be step by step, little by little, having more confidence of the truth of anatta. Why do we talk about citta and citasika and asya and anusya? To understand the truth that it's just a reality, anatta, no one at all. So while we are talking, what about memory, sanya, and vedana, and whatever is there, not known at all? If it's not known, it is object of wrong understanding and clinging again and again as usual. That's why understand that such a path leading to letting go, wrong understanding and ignorance has to be as it is, so natural, daily life. Otherwise, this moment is Dhamma. It is anatta. Without understanding what is there now, what about other moment in life? When we wake up and then see and then think, all of them are Dhamma. And if they are not known directly, can they be letting go of self? That's why understanding the subtlety of all Dhammas, of the way, is this moment. This is the way. Because understanding begins and begin again and again, again. Each moment of understanding it begin to be another level from hearing and considering. And that is the most precious in life, to understand the truth, even so very little. But it is Asya. See, we have talked about even at moment of thinking, seeing, hearing, it is there with a little more understanding by conditions. But in a day, what is more, ignorance or understanding? That's why understanding the meaning of parami, patience at any situation, when there are conditions, it's moment of understanding, even thinking, just hardness now is that which has to be known. Seeing, thinking, all in one's life, from life to life, has to be known. Otherwise, it's thereby asya and anusya, see, daily life. Is this the way? The only way to understand what we have said about seeing, hearing, thinking, considering, talking, and so on.
Just wondering, Azita or Alberto, if there's anything you'd like to bring up today? Or anyone else?
Just a question that came up on the Vietnamese discussion yesterday. The 3 types of satipatthana, and I didn't catch it. Can somebody explain again, please?
Well, this is also relevant for Drake's first reference to satipatthana too. So the 3 meanings of satipatthana that are given in the text. And the first one refers to the patthana are the objects, the gochara of sati with right understanding. So what can be directly known and the object of direct awareness are dhammas. So seeing now, what is seen now, pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, hardness, experienced through the body sense. So these are all the patthana of sati with right understanding. And what is the patthana now depends on the object that appears, that can be known. When Ajahn was mentioning earlier about one object appearing and what appears, it means what is experienced to be known at this very moment, only one reality at a time. So this is the first meaning of satipatthana, referring to the objects of sati with right understanding, one at a time, that can appear and be known. And the second meaning refers to the path, the way that has been followed by the Buddha and his disciples who have followed the path of Satipatthana, the Eightfold Path, and become enlightened. So this is the path taught by the Buddha and not by anyone else. And as I mentioned in the discussion yesterday, often it's said by people that, oh, there are many ways and they all reach the same goal. But no, the Buddha taught there is only one way, one right path, and that has to be the path beginning with right understanding and the other, and accompanied by the other right factors. And it has to be the understanding with awareness and right effort, right concentration, and so on, of the reality, a Dhamma appearing now. Body, as we think of it, is not a reality. Sensation, as it's described, is not a reality. But hardness that is touched now, heat or cold experienced through the body sense, these are realities, pattanas. So this is the second meaning of satipatthana. And the third meaning refers to the cetasika sati itself, sati that arises with right understanding. As we know, sati arises with all wholesome cittas, so at any moment of generosity or kindness or showing respect, sati is there, guarding against unwholesomeness, but only when it arises accompanied by right understanding of the path, right understanding of reality now. Only then is it the sati of satipatthana. So this is the third meaning. Is that a bit clearer, Asita?
Yes, Sarah, thank you very much. It was a good explanation, much clearer. Thank you.
And as Drake mentioned at the start, people often talk about developing satipatthana or doing satipatthana, but if there is no understanding of what objects are, what dhammas are, what can be known now, and if there is no intellectual understanding, the pariyati that Ajahn was mentioning, there cannot be the pati which she mentioned, which is satipatthana, the direct understanding of those realities. And without that direct understanding, there cannot be the Pativeda, the realizations, vipassana jnana, and enlightenment. So it has to begin with the right and firm understanding, intellectual understanding of what are the different dhammas, the namas, those realities that can experience an object, and the rupas, those realities that cannot experience anything. And there are two kinds of namas. Drake, I'm sure you are a little familiar with this. There's citta, which arises at each moment of consciousness. So seeing is citta, hearing is citta, thinking is citta, one citta at a time arising and falling away. But each citta is accompanied by at least 7 cetasikas. So we've discussed some of them. I mentioned manasikara. Attention is a cetasika that arises with every citta in life, arising and falling away. So it can be kusala, akusala, vipaka, or kiriya, wholesome, unwholesome, result like seeing, or none of those. Chetana is another one that arises with every citta. Vedana, feeling, arises with every citta. It's a nama. It experiences the same object as the citta. So gradually we just understand a little more about different kinds of namas and different kinds of rupas again, just to really help let go of the idea of any I to be found, anything, any person.
And just in case you haven't noticed, there's a link in the chat to a Pali glossary that you may find useful to refer to, and also a couple of definitions of terms that we've been discussing so far, just in case you haven't noticed. Thanks.
You doesn't have a spare 2 minutes to have a look at the notes. Any further comments, Drake, so far?
Well, thank you very much. So I'm curious about directly knowing, experiencing, being able to distinguish between feeling nama and sana, perception or memory, or say the difference between sight and sound. It's like to actually knowingly recognize the difference. Is that part of the process of appreciating
the different characteristic of each? So, as the Buddha said in suttas, it is these conditioned dhammas that are to be understood, and without understanding them, there cannot be the development of the path. However, that doesn't mean that each and every one of them has to be understood. It also doesn't mean that we, as discussed before, should be targeting certain realities to be the object of understanding. And it doesn't mean that we should be bewildered by the fact that there are all these different dhammas that are arising together, but we don't know them, so many to be known. Do we need to know all of the mental factors that arise with jittis? No. We shouldn't think that we ought to know more than we do. That's what leads one to the idea of practicing to find out more about, to see what has not yet been directly known. So don't be deterred by the apparent scope of the task ahead. We understand that the Buddha's teaching is just to develop a better understanding of what does appear at the present moment. So we can forget about what might be appearing. It's just about what is actually appearing at the present moment. But, or more particularly, it will be what appears to awareness and understanding if there are conditions for it to arise. So we study these details, not so that we can know how to practice, but so that we can just have a better overall understanding of the way everything is, the way it works, if you like. But of course, unless and until anything has been verified, we are not asked to believe it, to accept it, to not to question, but it is just a guide. The intellectual, the book knowledge is simply a supporting factor. More importantly is of having useful reminders about the danger of going the wrong way and what is the right way and the wrong way according to the Buddha's teaching. And of course, to what extent understanding has been developed before this life began, because as we know, accumulated tendencies are carried forward from one life to the next. And obviously, there has been an interest in previous lifetimes, otherwise we wouldn't have the interest we're doing this lifetime. But it starts from where we are at this moment.
I included the comment about Vedana as Nama because there are common misunderstandings about Vedana being experienced through the body and this kind of thing. So Vedana is always Nama, pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, neutral feeling, just three kinds of feeling. And then, of course, there are some subsets. So at this moment of chatting, different moments with pleasant feeling, moments with neutral feeling, maybe some moments of unpleasant feeling if one's getting a bit stiff or wanting to move, for example. So it is just the Vedana, the feeling that experiences or tastes the object that the citta experiences at a moment of seeing. It's always neutral feeling that arises with the seeing and experiences the visible object. Not known, not appearing, but at moment of touching something very hot, or then there may be painful feeling, unpleasant feeling at that moment, which is more apparent, or moment of eating and a taste, which actually at that moment of tasting is only neutral feeling, but immediately afterwards thinking with pleasant feeling and attachment. So that pleasant feeling is more apparent, clinging to what has been tasted. So it's always a Nama experiencing the object, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Pleasant and unpleasant feelings are more apparent, but usually so quickly is taken for my pleasant feeling, my unpleasant feeling. And all day there is looking for pleasant feeling, trying to experience pleasant feeling. And this is why in the deepest sense, even the pleasant feeling is dukkha. Whatever arises and falls away is dukkha. You mentioned you're familiar with words like dukkha, but usually people think of dukkha as being painful feeling, unpleasant feeling of all kinds. sickness, and so on. But in the deepest sense, whatever arises and falls away is dukkha. It's not a refuge. It's not satisfactory because it's impermanent. So considering a little more about the truth of each reality helps the considering of what that Dhamma is. And everyone would like pleasant feeling, but whatever feeling arises now is by conditions, not by anyone's wishing or trying. And this is why there's always disappointment trying to have pleasant feeling. But the clinging has to be followed by unpleasant feeling. So each one is dukkha, quite different from the memory, the sanya that arises with each citta, marking and remembering what has been experienced, the visible objects seen now, the sounds heard now. Each one is marked and remembered. So later, though maybe considering about what was discussed about Vedana, it's only possible because of sanya, marking and remembering the sounds, the words, the names, the labels, the ideas, and so on that are thought about now. So very different characteristics. And it's just about time to finish. So I just see if Ajahn would like to add anything before we finish.
So, can Vedana be Satipatthana?
That's a question for you, Drake, I think. Did you hear it? Can Vedana be Satipatthana?
I would think so. Because couldn't a feeling be directly experienced with mindfulness?
In what meaning of the three meanings?
Probably the first meaning.
What is the first?
That the particular characteristic of that Dhamma is known, mindfulness, clear comprehension.
And what about the second meaning?
That
The meaning?
I think the second meaning is the Dhamma is the only path to liberation, and that is the direct path.
Satipatthana. What is the first meaning?
To know the direct experience of that particular Dhamma.
Anything which is now appearing can be Satipatthana, the object of sati, to understand it as it is. Because we have heard a lot about Dhammas, everything in different aspects. But if it's not directly experienced with right understanding, it is not Satipatthana. Just one object at a time. So seeing, can it be Satipatthana? Anything, but it has to be Satipatthana, the object of Satipatthana, not just sati. Because the meaning of Satipatthana is not as usual any moment of kusala. So we can continue next time thinking about Satipatthana and what is there now of this moment to be known. สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ